Hi everyone, what's up? Today I'm really excited to be tasting some espresso on the gorgeous Lapavoni lever espresso machine that is the 2015 Expo, a special edition along with two other models celebrating 110 years of Lapavoni as a company. Now, these home espresso machines have been around a little over 60 years. That's a really long time, and Lapavoni and their coffee machines are steeped in a rich history that fundamentally popularized what espresso is. Now, the Expo Edition lever machine doesn't differ all that much to other models of Lapavoni lever machines when it comes to brewing the espresso. However, its looks are quite unique, with gold-plated features, that violin-shaped base, and the rosewood accents found on the handles, as well as the eye-catching, unmistakable golden eagle on top. Now, I thought this was attached, kind of like a hood ornament of a fancy car, but it's not. And I'm okay with that. Well, I'm a little disappointed. However, it doesn't take away from how awesome this coffee machine looks. And this model comes with a naked portafilter as well as the standard spouted portafilter. And then there are other accessories such as a plastic scoop and tamp and an auto milk frother attachment as well. But today I will just be using the bottomless portafilter as it's fun to do. And I'm going to be making a bunch of espressos back to back, really so I can just take this machine for a ride. I don't know if I need any better excuse than that. However, I am curious to see how the flavor of the espresso will evolve or possibly degenerate as the machine heats up. And it's one of those many quirks to a Lapavoni lever machine. I think it would be fair to say now that you do have to have an approach to brewing on one of these magnanimously. It'll take time and careful consideration in learning how to brew tasty coffee with one, but when you do, it's like nothing else. And I'll also add that whilst it does come with the steam wand, it is a machine that is more ideal for enjoying what is the miracle of brewing great espresso, if you know what I mean. Now, to get a few things sorted before we start brewing, you may notice when you remove your Lapavoni machine out of the box for the very first time, there could well be condensation seen sitting within the water gauge or even inside the boiler. And this is nothing to be concerned about. All Lapavoni machines are open and inspected by SMEG, the parent company, which means they have been bench tested by adding water to the boiler, then bringing it up to temperature to see if it heats up and whether it holds pressure. And I say this as I too would be concerned if it appears like I've been supplied a secondhand machine when I bought a new one. But this is quite common in coffee machines and grinders, and is in fact an indication of quality perhaps. And one other quick thing to mention before you start using your Lapavoni, and this is in the manual, you'll want to clean the water system. And this entails filling up the boiler with water and then a solution of either bicarbonate of soda or vinegar, then bring the machine up to temperature, and then flush out all that water from the boiler through the Grouphead, keeping that portafilter in, and then rinsing the boiler once all that's done with some cold water, and then you're done. So I've done all of that, and I'm ready to brew some espresso. So let me bring all this stuff over on the bench and we'll get started. Now, by no means am I an expert on all things lever machines, but having a sound knowledge in espresso brewing does give you some foundations to adapt to lever brewing. There is endless amounts of information out there that's helpful, found either amongst coffee or barista forums, certainly on lever Facebook groups, or here on YouTube. And I will attempt some things today that I've never done before, and these I've learned in a similar way. But if you do have any helpful tips, please add them in the comments section down below, as I'm sure we'll all find them useful. So let's start brewing. And we'll approach each of the many quirks to brewing on a Lapavoni as we get to it, as I've deliberated enough already. So what we need to first do is bleed out the false pressure within the boiler system at the moment. See, we've filled this boiler up with water, but there is an air gap at the top of the boiler. The pressure's reached up, but it's telling the pressure gauge that there is more pressure in there than in fact there is. So we just need to release some of that air that's stuck in the boiler, and then it'll heat up again to a proper temperature and pressure. And we simply do that by releasing the steam valve, for at least 5 or 10 seconds. And you can see the pressure's already dropped right back down again and it's heating back up. And it also doesn't hurt to open the valve to the group head and release some water through there as well, just so you can flush out any air gaps that are within the group head. So what we have here is a 1.6 litre boiler, and it's connected directly to the group head on the machine. And the water within the boiler will be more than 100 degrees Celsius, as we need more pressure to create steam. However, the group head will be cooler than the boiler for some time. So as water moves from the boiler through the group head, it loses temperature until it gets to a point where it's at the correct temperature for brewing coffee. The catch is, if you keep the machine on for too long, then that temperature from within the boiler does reach across and eventually warm up everything within the group head. So then the whole machine is at a similar temperature to the boiler. And then at that stage, your water no longer loses temperature within the group head, and you'll be brewing your coffee at higher water temperatures than you would prefer. Hence why it's important to brew only a couple of coffees on a Lapavoni and then turn it straight off again. It's not technically one of those machines to just keep brewing espresso, though there are some techniques that you can use to be able to keep the group head cooler. That way, when the water does pass through the group head, it removes some of that temperature again and you're brewing with much cooler water. Two of those techniques, both I've read on forums, is getting a small atomizer bottle with some water in there, and just by spraying a few squirts of water onto the group head, you're able to cool it down that way, sort of like air conditioning it. Or simply, before you pull your shot, getting a wet cloth and just placing it on there and saturating that group head with some cold water around it, and that will draw out some of the temperature from the group head and again bringing the temperature down. And there are a ton of accessories and third-party parts that you can add on to your Lapavoni to improve its temperature management. One that's quite simple to use and I highly recommend is getting a temperature strip that you can place onto your group head, and then that way you can monitor as your group head temperature rises, knowing then you can either then adopt some sort of way to bring that temperature down or stop brewing. Another thing I do recommend is grabbing the correct metal tamp for your portafilter. Now, this one is a 51 millimeter, which is fantastic for all your Lapavonis that are made post 2000. All the model Lapavonis that were made prior to 2000 take a 49 millimeter tamp. Now, I wouldn't just go with the plastic tamp that's given to you. Definitely go out and purchase one of these and it'll make a huge difference. There's also puck screens, WD-T tools, and a whole bunch of other accessories like I've mentioned that are available right now for your Lapavoni that will make such an incredible difference to the workflow and also the quality of the espressos that you can brew. Let's reach temperature again. I think it's now time to make some coffee. Another thing I've done is found a dosing cup that actually fits the portafilter, so that's pretty amazing. These are available to purchase as well. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rinse a bit of water through the portafilter, as it will then bring that portafilter at least up to the temperature of the water, nice and hot. Couple of flushes. That's perfect. Now, it does come recommended not to tamp too hard using the Lapavoni, as it can easily choke whilst you're brewing. Now, the next step to brewing an espresso on the Lapavoni seems like a lot of work. A lot of things to remember is when placing, there's really two ways to do this, but the best way to do it when placing the portafilter into the group head, because we're going to need to lift that lever. When we lift the lever, the piston comes up and allows water to move through the boiler into the group head and filling a chamber within the group head. When we push that lever down, the piston will drive the water through the puck. Now, when we initially lift this lever up, it will be drawing air through the portafilter to fill that space for then the water to move into the group head. If you do it too fast, you can actually lift all the grounds within the portafilter up, breaking that puck and all that work you've done with distribution and tamping. So it really is important to lift this lever up nice and slowly. And another good way to be doing this is just to bring it up right now without the portafilter in, just to the point where you see a little bit of water coming out and then back off. That way you don't have so far to lift the lever up. And it also allows the water to immediately interact with your coffee bed. The moment that happens, pre-infusion starts, and then you can let it go for say 4 to 6 or even 10 seconds, and then start bringing that lever back down. Now we're using a ratio of 2 to 1. I've got 14 grams in, so I'm aiming for around a 28 gram shot out. There we go, water's just starting to come off, so I've backed that off. I'm gonna lock my portafilter in. Bring the lever up, start the pre-infusion. 6 seconds, I'm gonna slowly push that lever back down again. All right, that seemed to run very fast. And we've got around 26 grams in around 27 seconds. So for the amount of coffee you've placed in, 26 grams out isn't so small at all. Like that's still close to a 2 to 1 ratio. They're not huge coffees from one pull of the lever, but you can in fact lift that lever back up again and continue to pump water through your bed of coffee to get more volume out. It's just doing it in such a way that you're not again lifting it too fast and sucking air up through that puck and breaking it all up. Now the notes on this coffee were chocolate, toffee, and berry jam. So cheers. Yeah. Straight up, that's a hallmark to under extraction. It's very acidic. Not terribly acidic, sorry. It's not unpalatably acidic, but it's straight up acidic. Like, you know, it's all the flavors are there, but it's too bright a coffee. I want a little bit more richness and body in that. So I think that just kind of brewed too fast. I haven't quite dialed this in enough. And I'll say when you're pushing that lever down, you are looking for some resistance. You don't want it to just fall down under the weight of nothing. You do want some resistance behind that puck, as you're gonna get much more crema and a lot more body, viscosity, and texture within your espresso. So when dialing in something like the lever, there is this tactile feel to brewing the espresso that you don't get on any other sort of automatic espresso machine. So you can feel that pressure directly in the lever, and this is where you're going to learn how to be brewing on a lever machine and how it's so much different to the rest of your machines. So let's fine this grind up just a little bit and we'll brew one more. Now when cleaning a Lapavoni, it's really important to understand there is no three-way solenoid valve at the back of the group head. So as you're pushing down on that lever, all that pressure you've created, its only way to escape is through the ground coffee and out the portafilter. Now to avoid a crazy mess that kind of looks like an explosion, you do want to leave your portafilter in there a little bit longer than normal after your shot, just to be sure there's no pressure still inside. But otherwise, unlock your portafilter. You do want to give it a gentle flush. And with these Lapavonis, it's nice. There's no screw in the middle, so you can directly wipe clean that shower screen. All right, going to lift this lever up till we get a little bit of water coming out and then back it off. I mean, after a while, you can probably hear it. You don't need to wait so much for the water to come out, probably just before that. Lock it in. Start the pre-infusion. Going for 6 seconds. Nice, gentle press. Oozing out. Now, when you bring that lever all the way down, there will be a tendency for it to keep dripping. As the water is slowly coming out of the puck. So I wouldn't necessarily keep timing, so to speak, as I've brought the lever all the way down. That's the final amount of water that is moving through the puck. So it was at around 33 seconds, so a little bit longer than I'd hope, but that is actually one of the temptations of using a Lapavoni, is to try and get the shot as quick as possible, but they tend to do sit around the 30 to 35 second brew time. But I've gotten 28 grams out. Let's just call that 32 seconds, 33 seconds, 28 grams out. It's looking like a much better shot here. Certainly not as acidic. There could be a better texture in the coffee, but otherwise there's quite a nice sweetness to the coffee. I can definitely get that. I'm starting to taste that berry jam coming through the chocolates, which is nice. Yeah, I think I can do one better than that even. Let's do it. Let's find the grind up again. Maybe not a notch. Cool. Boiler's back on again, so I'm just gonna wait for a sec. I gotta say, getting one of these espresso shot mirrors is absolute miracle. It's fantastic. I don't have to be getting down on my knees and looking up at the portafilter while trying to pull down on the lever. It's fantastic. It's fantastic for this video, but I'm sure it would come in absolutely fantastic for home as well. Oops. Start the pre-infusion. A couple of seconds late there. That's all right. It does help sometimes to have a lengthy pre-infusion, as the water is going to pass through the puck and you're going to have more water within the whole system when you bring that lever back down, as opposed to lifting it up and bringing it straight down. Nice and steady. Yeah, there's certainly a lot more resistance in this. See, I'm not too sure what to expect from this, because that was probably around a 35 plus second shot, but we'll see what it tastes like. All right, 28 grams. Much more crema on this. That looks way better. Smells more like toffee. Yeah, that's getting there. Now, even in these last 3 shots, as I've mentioned about the temperature management of this machine, I could say that each time I've drunk one of these espressos, I've noticed the temperature in the espresso has even risen. And I would say it will just continue to do so. Whereas these last 3 have been really enjoyable temperatures to drink at, or close to enjoyable, like just on that hot stage. The next 3 or 4 espressos might be too hot to drink to begin with. And that's probably a good point. Yeah, it's getting a lot more juicy now. So when I mentioned the berry jams, there's definitely a lot more aroma in this, but that berry jam is kind of like breaking out through the chocolates. Those chocolates were always there from the start, but I think there's just getting a lot more depth in this espresso the further the temperature rises, and perhaps even finding grinder. So we're getting closer to that ideal extraction. Well, that's part of dialing in. It's an unfortunate part about the lever espresso is obviously back to back, it's incredibly difficult to get consistent espressos. Let's go again. Might even fine it up just a touch more this time. All right, where are we at? It always does that. It always goes to heat up just as I'm about to start brewing, which is good though. It means it's bringing it up to the right temperature. All right, things are starting to warm up. Even the base to the Lapavoni machine warms up, so just be aware of that. Everything becomes hot. Even the eagle. Of course the eagle, it's right above the boiler. All right, I got it that time. Yeah, there's definitely a donutting extraction going on here. Now that's essentially like, I'll explain it. It's basically the water is brewing around the outside of the basket and not even coming straight through the middle at all. And that generally signifies that didn't quite lock in that puck well enough. We're just gonna have to skip this one. I'm not even sure I want to taste this one. That was quite significantly a donut extraction. One of the other many ways that you can understand whether it's reached temperature or not in the group head and it's not cooling the water down anymore is if you're lifting that lever up and there's a bunch of steam coming out. That means, well, you've used a lot of water and there's steam up in the boiler, but also that water is not cooling down as it's moving through the group head. Much like a single boiler machine where you need to rinse, say, 5 or 10 seconds and temperature surf out of the boiler. Unfortunately, with these styles of machines, there's no real temperature surfacing as the water is not going to lose temperature through the group head at all. So in that case, you then have to go to those different methods of cooling that group head down, or turning the machine off and walking away for 10 minutes, which I'm not about to do. Let's try this method, hey? Give that a second. Ooh, there's steam coming off of that. Yeah, that's much cooler than before. It's still hot, but it's cooler. Oh, much more resistance. That's good. Let's see where we get here. It's like a 36-second shot. 28 grams. A little bit more even. 29. Nice. 30, that's a good output. I held the pre-infusion probably that little bit longer than I wanted to, but it's allowed more water to enter the puck and obviously get that little bit more water in your output as well. So we'll taste this shot, see where we're at, and then I think I might practice with one where I'll lift the lever up a second time and see whether I can take it up to a further yield of, let's say, a 1 to 2.2, 2.5. Go up to 40 grams or so. See if we can get that out. I feel like we're reaching the edge of over extraction possibly. So it's somewhere between that last shot I talked about and this one. It's just a little hint of bitterness now. You can almost smell it like burnt chocolate, or rather burnt toffee. All that jamminess is kind of disappearing in the shot. That was interesting, even though I tried to cool down that group head. It's been a few minutes, I guess, since brewing in this machine. Let's try a couple more. I'll try the atomizer, possibly I can bring the group head down a little bit cooler, and I'll try a double pump, see what we can get out of that. Making coffee is a messy exercise. We all love to take photos of our espresso benches when they're super nice and clean, but the reality is after about 2 or 3, probably doesn't even take that much, maybe 1. I say that while I'm rubbing my hands on my jeans. There's mess everywhere. Wow, it's so impressive. You can even almost hear it sizzling on the group head. That's how much it's steaming. Whew. It's a hot towel. It's like I've just been to the barber. So we're going to lift the lever up on this one a second time and see how much, I guess, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that steam. See how much more volume I can get out. So I'm going to take the pre-infusion up to about 8-10 seconds. Bring the lever down a little bit until I see, I guess, the whole bottom of the portafilter is full of coffee coming out, which is about now. A few more drips. I'm going to bring it up again. I feel like it's added a little bit more volume to the whole system. Well, I can't say I added too much more volume. Not that time. Maybe I needed to bring the lever down a little bit further. I'm going to just get over 32 grams, I think. And that was a long shot too. Yeah. All right. 33 grams. Yeah, that's much darker. Whew. And it's almost time already to no, it is definitely, oh my goodness. It is definitely time to empty this drip tray. Probably a little too many flushes. That's one of the other many things about a Lapavoni. Although this is one of the deeper trays, they tend to not have a very deep drip tray. So be mindful of that. Ooh. I think perhaps the cooling down of the group head really worked that time. It has all that jamminess back again. Yeah, that's really enjoyable. A lot of texture in that as well. That's probably the first coffee I've had with that much texture. Rich. They've all had really nice lingering aftertaste, so. Good resistance on the lever too, bringing it down. Let's just empty this drip tray before it becomes an emergency. All right, interesting. Give you a little bit of a spray. Looking fabulous there. Let's leave that to cool down a little bit. And I want to do one more shot. And I think we'll wrap it up. But that was a really nice coffee. Wasn't what I was going for though. I was definitely going for a lot more volume by lifting that lever up again. But perhaps this time I'm going to go even further down. Lift the lever back up nice and steady and then bring it back down for one final time. I'm sure the flow rate will increase that second time as well as I bring it down because the coffee's already extracted quite a lot. And then adding further water behind that and pushing it through again. we're increasing the volume out, so the ratio, so it should surely, flow rate should increase. Let's do this. Gonna lift the lever up for a longer shot. 2 lever pulls. It's at about 8 seconds that I'm pressing down. Good resistance there, hey? All right, let's add some more to that. So I'm almost perpendicular to the bench now. Oh yeah. That second time got way easier to pull down. Push down, rather. There we go. We're racing past 30 grams. Oh! Okay, 40. Let's stop that, hey? That's nice, I was happy with that. Hey, you can just monitor it, but you can let that drip out into the drip tray, that's fine once you've got the volume that you're after. So that's interesting. Had the lever perpendicular to the bench, basically having it all the way down to lift it back up again, seemed to get me about 10 grams extra in the cup. Oh, that looks way better. Smells sweet. Not bad. A little bit thinner. A little bit thinner of an espresso. You know, I think I would love to be able to, in this demonstration, get to that God shot, right? That God shot that we all want to achieve and be able to tell you what it tastes like and so forth. But I don't think I'm going to get that today, so to speak, because, well, it takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of playing around to find that shot. Now, all of these shots, I guess bar the first one and maybe the fourth one, were like really enjoyable coffees, really enjoyable. That first one was probably just a little hint, like too acidic, and that fourth one was like getting to the edge of extraction. I wouldn't say that it was over extracted, like I wouldn't say it was burnt or bitter, but it hasn't been enjoyable as the others. But that's still really nice. And if anything, I learned that the lever can be placed down to perpendicular, brought back up again, and gotten more volume, around 10 or so grams. Obviously, if you get to a point where it's going past what you want, then you can just remove the cup, bring the lever all the way back down again, and let it flow into the drip tray, or have a second cup ready to catch the rest of it. Now, one of the other important things when it comes to a Lapavoni that's, I wouldn't say difficult to manage, but if the machine is off and you're going to use it, always check the water gauge to see where you're at. And it would be healthy to keep at least 3/4 of your tank filled, or keep your tank filled to at least 3/4. So if it drops any below that during those times that you're not using it, definitely top it up, because if you're halfway through brewing and you have to top your water up, the difficult thing is, because it's all under pressure, you do need to release all of that pressure before you can open the tank to fill it up. And it's not so much a concern as it is just time consuming. So you would literally just turn this steam wand on. What I would do is, because I also want to drop the temperature, turn the boiler off, let it remove all that pressure. Now, when you go to open the boiler, just keep the steam tap open for that moment, because so long as you've got that steam tap open and it's no longer blowing out any steam, when you open that boiler, you're not going to get any steam popping out of the top of the boiler that's built up there. So if you walk away now, come back, close that, and leave it for a little bit longer to open the boiler tap, there might be some pressure that's built up again inside the boiler. So that would be my recommendation. Always just keep that steam wand open when you go to open the boiler after it already being hot. This may take some time. But we've used about half of the boiler's tank to make, I don't even know what espresso I'm on right now. 5 espressos? 5 espressos. And you can make 10 or so more espressos using a Lapavoni back to back with a full tank. However, you do notice the flavor in those espressos further on down the track, how the flavor changes as the whole machine heats up. As of now, like even the bottom of this Lapavoni is quite hot, or at least warm to touch, but definitely at this backside and around the boiler is super hot. Yeah, you want to be aware of that. So as the steam's already stopped right now, it didn't take all that, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, it's a bit of steam coming up, but you know, I'd be more than safe to top up my water now. It really didn't take all that long. And then you would just repeat the process that I did at the beginning. So once you've added all your water, you'd place close up your boiler and then bring it up to temperature and then release all of that pressure initially, which is the false pressure, to begin brewing again. And that's brewing with the Lapavoni espresso machine. Thanks very much for coming along with this journey. If you have any questions on this product, add them in the comment section down below and we'll get straight back to you. See you next time.